Hello everyone, welcome to the Desolation Sounds Podcast. My name is Stephen Hook and this is a podcast celebrating everything to do within the world of alternative music. Be that rock, punk, metal or even extreme metal. Coming up this week's show, barely any news at all because it feels like everyone's just gone on a weird holiday. But most importantly of all, album reviews from Devil Master, Weezer and Open Mic Night. I lied to you last week, it's not Yakuza, but it is glam, hard rock, thing. Dirty Looks with their 6th album, Bootlegs. For some reason I sound awful, actually, more than usual. First news, like I said, there is barely anything in terms of news. In fact, the one news article I could find was apparently, last week before, within the last couple of weeks, I'm sure you would have already seen it on the interwebs anyways, but Chris Fenn left Slipknot, one of the custom percussionists of the band. Or so we thought. Basically, his lawyers come out and said that legally speaking, he is still... hang on, playing my microphone. He is still legally in the band. Which is odd, considering Slipknot have released a statement saying Chris is no longer in the band. Chris himself has gone on to say many, many bad things about the band. But for whatever reason, he's still there, apparently. It's a bit... whenever legal matters come into anything, it gets horrifically complicated, so I'm not going to try and find out the legal proceedings behind it, but yeah. Chris apparently still in Slipknot. I doubt he'll have much of a presence on the new album. On the subject of which, just before I hit record, Slipknot have released a spoopy, weird teaser upcoming for the album. And I think the tagline on it was just vocal, so I imagine... And there was a date on there attached as well, so I imagine we're going to get a new song within the next couple of days. And before I go any further, that wasn't the only news story. I just remember, I just didn't write it down. Rammstein, I'm going to see if I can find it. The industrial metal titans, they've been posting all over Instagram for ages, the fact that they were in a studio and doing this, that, and the other. But now, I see if I know my Roman numerals, that is the 28th of March this year. I hope so. Oh shit, that's tomorrow. Well, tomorrow's recording. And release, actually. I'm shit with timekeeping. There's like a small clip with a bunch of them on what looks like a gallows step with a rope around the neck. And are we about to get what many people are calling the final Rammstein album? I'm excited, you're excited, everyone's excited. German. The only new music I could find from this week is Blood Command have released a second single from the upcoming EP Return of the Arsonist. That's out 19th of April. The song is called... It's harking back to a day that I hold very dearly, and not for all good reasons. It's like a file type for if you're trying to torrent a TV series, something which I'd never did because I'm a very, very good boy. But season 1, episode 2, Return of the Arsonist, 720p HDTV X264. Never quite understood what 264 meant. I think it means bitrate, but I don't know anything about bitrates. It is a hugely bombastic punk rock song, and Karina on the track sounds flipping good. Really flipping good, she does. And other than that, Amon have announced their new album called Berserker. That's going to be album 11. That's coming out the 3rd of May. And they've released a lead single for it. It's called Raven's Flight. It is everything you'd expect from Amon. Huge, stomping Viking stuff with guitars going... it's really fun. Really, really good. And the music video has Eric Rowan and I think Victor from The Ascension. Yeah, the one that's got a bit more hair. And as a wrestling fan, that was just a fun little thing that someone pointed out to me because I like fun things like that because I'm cool. Moving on then, that's, like I said, that's literally all the stuff I have. It's been oddly quiet. Not unless I've just missed something glaringly obvious because I am prone to do that, but I've had a lot of time off this week, so I feel like I should have noticed this sort of thing. Album reviews then, we're going to start with Devil Master and their debut full-length album, Satan Spits on the Children of Light, or on Children of Light, I should say. They are a blackened punk outfit from Philadelphia into Pennsylvania in the United States of America. And I seem to have some weird trouble with blackened punk or blackened hardcore, because on paper I should absolutely love that style of music. I love the drama and the ambiance of black metal. You know, it's dark, it's sinister, it's spooky as shit, and I completely go for that kind of thing. And on the other side of it, I love the beats and the execution, and just like the overall song structures of punk rock. I will always say, and I've even probably said it on here before, I always consider myself more as a punk than anything else, because in terms of musically, because for the reasons why I said I don't like progressive metal and like gent and that sort of thing, whereas they take so much time thinking about what they want to do, punk rock just feels that much more organic. So having this dark spoopiness over something that I really, really enjoy musically, it should be a win-win for me. But I very rarely seem to click with a band who like personify blackened punk. Pagan, their album last year, apart from I think it was Death Before Disco, the lead single, it just blew straight by me. I just like so many people were popping for that album, and I saw it a lot of like end of year lists, and I think mine, like where I ranked it, was like bottom half of the year. Black Breast similarly never really did anything for me. Dark Throne, they are more of like a greatest hits EP kind of band for me, but then again, Dark Throne have gone for lots of things. They've gone crust punk, like that trad metal sort of thing. They've gone back to black metal recently, so they're a bit all over the place. Cavell Attack I've enjoyed, but I've only really listened to album number 3, where they were more the heavy metal kind of band. They're like hardcore and they're black and roll sort of thing. They put more onto the first 2 albums. Sapruga from a couple of weeks ago, they're probably the most notable exception so far, in the way of like now I can still remember riffs from that album, and it'll still be on shuffle, and I'll still listen to it, and I still really, really enjoy it. And you think that is, what was it, Sapruga on their first album, some like super underground band from Russia, as opposed to like Pagan, Black Breath, and Cavell Attack, some like the most modern, exciting punk bands to come out, and then Dark Throne are just like the old school veterans of that kind of thing. And I've never just really got into it, and I don't understand why. But I was still really excited when I found this on Bandcamp, because the album art for this album is fucking insane. It is equal parts like evil and black metal with like weird psychedelia and that kind of thing. The name itself, Satan Spits on Children of Light, is fucking great. Oh my god. It's rare you get an album name that good. Which songs did I found? I think it was Desperate Shadow that sort of like collared me in a little bit. And I thought it was an okay song. I listened to like a couple more songs on it. I think it was the first major song from it, which is Nightmares in the Human Collapse. That's when I was like, oh shit, this might be my kind of thing. And when I was like doing a little bit of reading about the album in general, a lot of people were seeing this as one of the underground's biggest hitters for Relapse this year, because this is one of the new signings, and yeah, there's a lot of people saying that Relapse have got gold here. So I was really excited to try it, and here we are. Like I said, first proper song, Nightmares into Human Collapse. It opens with this huge D-beat backed shrieking guitar riff, and it then sort of like cobbles down into a dark, foreboding lyric that's more, it's not at the forefront of the music, it's like way back down in the mix, and then you get like a quick little yelp from lead singer Max, who is more up front. And just that, my tum-tum's making funny noises. You can hear like weird squirting noises. That's just my tum-tum. Everything you want to know about this album, you get in that first 90 seconds of track 2. I'm spilling tea. One thing I did particularly pick up on is there is a seamless mix between genres that is done better here than it is on a lot of other bands of this ilk, or a lot of albums of this ilk, I should say. Like even Cavell Attack, who were regarded as like the next big thing for black side thing for a few years. And more of a newcomer to the thing, Angst, which are ANCST. They were another band who every time, I ended up listening to out of their last 3 albums. It was always a thing where, similar to this, in the moment I thought that the Angst album was going to be like end of year list kind of material, and as soon as I pressed stop I completely forgot all about it, and when I came up to do my list it's like, oh well, it hasn't sat with me, therefore it must be shit. But looking for comparisons for Devil Master, I was like, fucking hell, I missed out on such a good band. And again, press pause, gone. Don't know what it is. I think I might be retarded, who knows. Really sorry, Devil Master, you definitely deserve better than this. The album is called Satan Spits on Children of Light. If you like anything to do with extreme music, that album title alone should be what draws you in, and then the album art itself is fucking insane. So, yeah, Satan Spits on Children of Light by Devil Master. And yeah, I'm just sad I can't do it a better service. On to the opposite end of things, Weezer. Fucking hell, this album. Weezer with their 6th self-titled album, the 13th overall. They are the LA-based power pop titans again, and I think they're the first band that I've reviewed twice, aren't they? I guess technically In Flames, but that's just finicky. And so this is their Black album. At some point in the last 12 months, Weezer have decided they want to be the coolest band to Generation Z kids. It's a mixed effect. So it all started, as far as I kind of like try to do it like a timeline sort of thing. It started with the Africa cover. It would start with the Roseanne cover, because everyone, like, I've dubbed Africa propaganda core because there's a song you always hear like Props or Beer Keller or that kind of thing. So it gets played everywhere, and I've got a friend who just cannot fucking stand that song anymore. I'm slowly leaning towards that way because I hear this song fucking everywhere. And so it started off with a campaign to get them to cover Africa, because for some reason everyone picked on Weezer. They trolled that campaign with a cover of Roseanne. Then they eventually did do Africa, which was all very hardy-ha, relevant mood stuff, because that's why. And at that point, I think everyone thought that was that. They've had their little viral thing. It's good on the back of the follow-up to Pacific Daydream. You know, it's all a bit of fun. We were wrong. A few months after the Africa cover came Can't Knock the Hustle, which is a hugely upbeat funk rock song, which I didn't listen to it at the time. First time I heard the song was when I started listening to the Black album. And it's a little odd compared to, so the Weezer that I know. And the Weezer that I know are all the like greatest hit songs. So, Hash Pipe, My Name Is Jonas, Buddy Holly, Pork and Beans, that kind of thing. Like the big songs that everyone knows by Weezer. And then the White album, which came out, 2016 I think it was. And so, for me, modern Weezer is the White album, where they got past like all the college rock sort of stuff. They like emo, heavy pop punk kind of thing, whereas now it's more, not to the point where it's dreamy, but more melodic power pop alt rock sort of thing. And I really, really enjoyed the White album. So to hear a Can't Knock the Hustle type song, I started to get kind of worried, like, is this going to go down the route of Beverly Hills again? Because no one wants that again. No one should want that again. And what was the song I did with Lil Wayne? Can't Stop Partying. Fuck me, that song is bad. So then, yeah, you had Roseanne, you had Africa, you had Can't Knock the Hustle. Then a few months after that, you had the second single, which was Zombie Bastards, which is more of a Weezer song. It's got some pretty daft vocals, but musically it's pretty solid. And if you go through and look at a lot of the big Weezer songs, you do have that. Like, Pork and Beans musically is great, but lyrically it's just what is going on. But with Zombie Bastards came the album art for the Black Album, and it's always been a thing where if it's a self-titled album, they put themselves on the front cover and usually like color code it because obs. And it's the four of them stood in front of a black background with one single spotlight as they all wear black latex, like BDSM dominatrix style jumpsuits. Which, I don't know, it might just be, it's not my kink, but it's weird. It's so odd. They're men in their 40s, for fuck's sake. It's just, if you wear a costume like that in your 40s, your marriage is failing or you're a serial killer. They're your two options. And I'm just saying. It's just how it is. And it's just, that was the image they were going for. And they said in interviews it was going to be like Beach Boys gone bad. I don't think Beach Boys ever went this bad, but this, alright, okay, so they are kind of sitting more into the fact that they are trying to be a bit memey, which is, it's not great, it's not what I'd like, but if it works, if it gets them more sales, power to them. And then it was the surprise release of the Teal album, which was that mad, mostly 80s covers, cover album. That was the point where they realized their memedom, and because it's so self-aware in its own memeage, and it's been like, I know a lot of people, they weren't initially aware of it, and I said to them, it's got a cover of like No Scrubs by TLC on there, and obviously Africa was on there. What was the other big one that I remember telling everyone about? Mr. Blue Sky, that was it. Also, it's got Take On Me on there. I was like, you do realise it's got all this really weird shit. And then as soon as I started telling it to people, they were adamant they had to go look for it on like Spotify, YouTube, whatever it was. And it basically got sought after for its ridiculousness. And that's when the podcast I listened to was starting to get quite worried about the album in general, because it wasn't going to be an album for the Weezer fans of the past. It looked like it was going to be a Weezer album for new fans and to bring like a younger generation in, which again, they're prerogative, they can do that, and I'm sure if I thought hard enough I could try and find some bands who've done that, but I don't know many bands. I don't know if I could find any bands, I should say, who have done it quite like this. So here we are. And then the double single release came. You had Heiser Kite, which is more of an expected Weezer Kite song. To me, it kind of felt like it would fit right at home on the White Album, because it is very like dream pop influenced, alt rock, huge bass backed guitars in the chorus. I really, really like Heiser Kite. Not too keen on Living in LA, which I'm pretty sure I covered both the songs when they came out a few months ago. I meant months. Living in LA is fucking shit. You start thinking that it's catchy and fun and just upbeat pop, and then you realize it is all those things because it's the same song you've heard for the past 3 years, because every other pop artist has done a song like this, talking about girls being in LA. At least I think it's talking about girls, because the song also mentions spiders, spaceships, and sings a bit in French, because, like I said, Weezer are known for doing odd lyrics. Hang on, tea break. I probably should stop cutting all these tea breaks out, but fuck you. That's a lot of effort. So, as I was getting more and more into the album, I realised that it was basically separated into two parts. The Weezer we all know and love, and the new, what I'm dubbing Fortnite Weezer, because they did launch 4 songs from the album on Fortnite the day before it was supposed to be released as full, because the world is a terrible place. So, songs like Heiser Kite and Zombie Bastards, as previously mentioned, they suit the more older Weezer aesthetic, and I appreciate when I say older Weezer aesthetic, I do mean an album that came out about 3 years ago, but hold off on that. And I'd throw the Prince Who Wanted Everything in there as well, a little bit more upbeat, but that kind of like I said before, daft lyrics, good musically, the wholesome Weezer package. Whereas you got Too Many Thoughts in My Head, I'm Just Being Honest. They joined the likes of Living in LA and Can't Knock the Hustle as the Fortnite Weezer. Because the way I was kind of measuring in my head, other bands are doing it and they're doing it better. And that's not, I admit that's not like the best argument to have, because there's always going to be another band doing it better, a particular song style better, but here it was just so bland and so boring and so plastic. Excuse me. And as I got further along with the album, there was a mysterious third option that I found songs sort of sank into. And it had the older Weezer aesthetic, where it was the dreamier, power pop, alt rock kind of thing that everyone knew and loved the Weezer for, but just done really badly. And yet it is that like chilled, laid back vibe, but it's so fucking bad. And like the doo-doos from Piece of Cake are fucking annoying. And he's got like one word sentences for the verses that just go bum, bum, bum. Just fucking get on with the song. California Snow, I can't specify anything bad about that song. It's just bad. There's just nothing to it. It's just terrible. And the amount of times I've skipped over Byzantine is unreal. First of all, this is the first time I've ever heard that song said out loud. That word, sorry. It just doesn't do anything. It's the same drum beat the entire way through the song. The song is so painfully bland. And if I ever had a partner who wrote me a song that was anything like Byzantine, I'd pepper spray their genitals, because it's fucking awful. I think I googled the word Byzantine when it's used as an adjective, and it got described to me as of scrupulous nature. A scrupulous nature basically means it's a bit dodge, shall we say. So I'm not quite sure what that means in the context of the song. I think it's just basically saying that we shouldn't be in love, but I really like you, and pay no attention to the fact that I'm looking at you through bushes. The album as a whole is just bad. Like, there are highlights with, I said before, I do genuinely enjoy High as a Kite's a song. Too Many Thoughts in My Head and Can't Knock the Hustle are fun in an uber guilty pleasure kind of way. They would stay on if they came on shuffle. Well, I'd have to be in the right mood to have them on shuffle, but if they got played at a party, I wouldn't be upset. But the rest of the album is boring, and quite often at times it's actually annoying, and it's very, very impressive to make music that's just annoying. And what saddens me is, in a few years' time, when people look back at like various eras of Weezer and that kind of thing, people are going to look at this sort of time for Weezer and realise that the biggest song from this era is not anything from White Album, certainly not anything from this, but the biggest song Weezer played around this time isn't even a Weezer song. And that's not a very good indication of a band. No matter, I'm going to say no matter who you are, but I know it's probably a glaring obvious, but, you know, the one thing else, before I move on to the open mic, because I don't really think at this point Weezer needs it for fans of. I think everyone's heard of Weezer by now. The one thing I'm really curious at, the swearing in this album, or profanity used in the album, like, I listen to a lot of, I said before, punk rock, black metal, death metal, various different kinds of like angry music, which is what we're all here for, I hope. And it's never really offset me as much as it has here. I know I read a bit in here where Rivers does swear throughout the album, which is a very rare characteristics of the Weezer sound. And I read a couple of reviews that picked up on that as well. Listen to one, sorry. And it's something that I've never picked up on because I've never been the biggest Weezer fan before. But it does feel quite off-putting every time he swears. I don't know if it's just because it feels like he's putting it in there to try and be edgy, or if it's just I've like hardwired myself without realising to accept Weezer doesn't swear. But for people who are more invested in Weezer, and people who like understand their aesthetic and their music more. I'd love to find out if you feel the same way, or just even if you listen to this album, if you feel the same way. Whether anytime he does swear, it does feel a bit off-putting, a bit antagonistic. Because I feel like it does, but then that might just be me being a puss. But who knows? Yeah, get in touch with that. It is, if you want something daft, maybe go listen to it. It's officially it's a self-titled album, but unofficially it is the Black Album. It's by Weezer, album number 13. And I genuinely can't figure out which one I dislike more between that and the Teal album. I actually think I prefer the Teal album, which... On to Open Mic. And I know last week I promised the Yakuza album of Seismic Consequence. I want a little bit more time on that one because there's a lot more going on there than I thought. So I thought, what's happened said? Well, Devil Master and Weezer were two albums that I thought I would really enjoy, and then for whatever reason just haven't done the job for me. So I thought, why don't we try and converse that? Why don't we try and find an album that should never, on paper, have been what I wanted, but end up really, really enjoying. And that's why I decided to look at an album called Bootlegs. It is album number 6 from the San Francisco hard rock glam metal band Dirty Looks. Dirty Looks were a hard rock glam metal band from, like I said, from San Francisco. Probably should have led with that. They were fronted by Danish-born frontman Henrik Østergaard. I really hope I'm pronouncing that right. Throughout the time of the band, and he was him at the helm, but he had a revolving cast of talent behind him. He held the band in various different guises, such as Rumble Dog and Burning Orange, which I'll touch on a little bit later. And there's a couple of guys who had like long tenures. I've deleted the tab, fuck. I think it was Jack Pryor, I believe his name was in for the first period of the band. Steve McConnell, the drummer, was there for quite a few years as well. So they did have like a mildly substantial lineup for a few years, and then it's just, if you go on the Wikipedia page, it is just a mess of names, to the fact that the Wikipedia have got two lists. The artists who played with Dirty Looks as in like time order, and the talent who played with Dirty Looks in name order, just so it's easier to understand what's going on. Dirty Looks had fairly substantial success in the late 80s. Their major label debut, Cruel from the Wire, which I think was album number 4, it achieved immense success. It had MTV airplay, it had good standing on the Billboard chart, and even today it still has fairly common and fairly recurrent purchases. The follow-up in 1989, a year later, Turn of the Screw, achieved even higher successes and has thus far become the band's most lucrative album. Odds are it's going to stay that way. We'll talk about that later. And when you, like, similar to how I was saying now, where we have a lot of people talk about underground UK bands and a lot of like UK hardcore, that was sort of seen blew up a few years ago with like Brotherhood of the Lake and Drip. I think Drip back part of that scene. And there's another one I can't remember off the top of my head, but you know, that kind of thing. This was like the underground glam, I think, back in its day, where you've got your Def Leppard and your Motley Crue now, but the people who really went into glam metal these days would go back and find this as sort of like a hidden relic in amongst it all. And the outtakes from Turn the Screw and Cool from the Wire, there was this album. So it was the outtakes from those albums, bearing in mind that with Cool from the Wire and Turn of the Screw, that was major label production efforts and production costs. So although the songs weren't used for the big albums, they had the big album work on them, if that makes sense. And so yeah, it would go on to make Bootlegs, which is an album, even though it's like the cast-offs from those two albums, this is the album I prefer because I am a huge hipster and I won't hear anything said otherwise. The sound of Dirty Looks it sits somewhere between the dirty hard rock of AC/DC with a lot of riffs in there as well, and the more flamboyant harmony sort of stuff from the likes of Def Leppard. So it does bounce between like the real super lighter end of glam. It doesn't quite sit in the middle of the riff heavy stuff like Motley Crue, but it does sometimes steer near towards the more gritty hard rock sort of stuff. It's a weird mix of things, so that's why I feel like it is like a hidden diamond amongst it all. And you can hear it, that kind of evidence where it is that sort of flamboyance with grit. It's evident straight from the get-go in Speed Queen. It's that classic rock and roll guitar riff with a big, huge, like layered vocal choruses, and similar tropes exist in Black and White and Fall for You. And it just does have that. I don't want to say energy because I've used that word a lot at today, but the same way you can like foot tap to like AC/DC and sort of like sing along to Def Leppard. It's got little bits of elements in both of them. And Henrik in general just does have a really strong voice for this kind of thing. Only Tomorrow has the same kind of power and swagger to it that could rub shoulders with Aerosmith. I've seen people compare songs on the album to Faster Pussycat, and one of the songs, I think it was The Last Forever. I saw someone compared to Led Zeppelin, which I'm not au fait with Zeppelin at all, so that's for other people to judge, but I imagine if he's making that kind of claim, he's going to know something about both sides of the band. When Dirty Looks bring the intensity back, and for the inevitable like glam ballad that every glam metal band has, forever will have. In this case, it was a song called The Last Forever. Did I compare? Was that the one I got compared to Led Zeppelin? I think the one I got compared to Led Zeppelin was actually Loveless. I don't know. Something in there got compared to Led Zeppelin. Go and listen for yourself. The ballad in this is Last Forever. It still is quite powerful, but this time more of like an emotional register because Henrik is very intelligent on how he uses his vocals. Excuse me. Whereas usually, yeah, he has got that gruff, gritty kind of voice. Here, he just toned that grittiness back. You can to the point where you can still tell it's him, but it's not signature him. Not quite as when what was that Aerosmith song? Is it Sing for the Moment, where even now I am not convinced that's Steve Tyler singing, even though I've seen it written down saying this is Steve Tyler. I'm like, fuck. It's not quite that extreme. It's like that, but it's not the opposite kind of thing. What am I saying? Whereas it is a different vocal style, but you can still it's still familiar. You can still recognize the fact it is Henrik Østergaard. And he knows when to pull back completely and when to push forward with more like power. I keep saying the same fucking words. The more grunt in his voice, we'll say. I think easily my favourite song from the album is a song called Fade Away. And it harks back again to that gritty rock glam sound I was talking about before. Henrik also did the guitars for the band, and especially for this album, along with a guitarist called Paul Idell. He is one of those gentlemen who stayed with the band for quite a while. I believe Paul was lead, although I'm not 100% sure. But anyway, between them, Henrik and Paul do a great job on the guitars. Throughout the album, especially on Fade Away though, the chorus riffs really bounce off Henrik vocals. And they back the big layered vocal part in the chorus as well. And yeah, not only do they... I'll use like Fade Away as an example for now, but it does happen a lot throughout the rest of the album. They have riffs that sort of like go along with the vocal as he's singing, but also backs up like the instrumental breaks. And then yeah, when it hits the chorus, more like a bigger sound comes in. It's still bouncing off it, and like whereas I was talking about a lot with drum fills that sort of like fill in those gaps and still make it interesting, he's doing that on the guitars. And yeah, I think guitar work on this is really, really great. And I think a lot of the reason why I prefer what's essentially a compilation of B-sides against two of the band's biggest albums is because it does sit somewhere between those two major albums that are known for. So from Turn the Screw, it's got more of an emphasis for the guitars, just in general, like a better tone for those riffs. And from Cool from the Wire, it's like Cool from the Wire in general, I just prefer the riffs on there, and the actual just general guitar arrangements I think work better from there. So the better guitar playing and the better mix that combine those two together, and I think that's the middle ground that Bootlegs sits in. And for Desolation in general, it unfortunately doesn't have a very happy ending, because nothing ever does, because we're all emo as fuck. Desolation would start and stop over the next, well, it would start and stop a lot over the subsequent years. Most notable, they pretty much broke up between 1996 and 2007, where Henrik rechristened the band as Burning Orange, and I believe that was a time where he took a back seat from vocals and just concentrated on guitar work, and brought in a new vocalist for a while. They would return as a full band again with Henrik at the helm in 2007. They released a few more albums, their last being ICU in 2010, where the lineup for the band was Henrik on vocals, Scott Parmenter on guitar, who I believe also worked or played in another band in the 80s, Bill Daly on drums, we can't find much about him, and Greg Pianka on bass. The sad news is Greg would never see the release of the album. He was tragically killed months prior to the album's release. The band would continue for another year but would fold altogether in 2011 after the passing of Henrik Østergaard himself that year. They were certainly a band of that generation. Like many things in general musically have made a comeback over the years. You've got a revival of like new metal, rap and metal collaborations. Thrash made like a brief comeback in the UK a few years ago, like hard-hitting thrash that is. It's still, I think it's starting to come back again now, especially with the likes of Power Trip running and gunning it. But glam certainly hasn't made that kind of comeback. Also saxophone music. Saxophone music has made a beautiful comeback, which I hopefully I'll talk about in the Accuser review. But yeah, like I say, glam really hasn't made that comeback. So I'd love to, if Desolation broke now, I reckon people would be saying they should have been around in the 80s. They were around in the 80s and 90s, around that like peak of glam. And they were at the turn of the night as well, which is the peak of glam. Because I know it's sort of like started to like just spiral down by mid-90s when the grunge era came in. But I'm pretty sure around the 90s, Motley Crue was still hot fire. Van Halen was still top of their game. I think I'm by no means am I an expert on glam metal or the basics of human language. But I think for the fans off part, I've said AC/DC because of Henrik's vocals and the kind of riffs that they play. Skid Row I think they were the closest I could think of to combine that middle ground of riffs and glamour. Excuse me. And Def Leppard as well. And like I said before, people compared certain songs of the album to Faster Pussycat and Led Zeppelin. Just in general, if you are a fan of that glam metal type deal, and I know it's still got like a cult following now. If you haven't done so already, I do recommend Dirty Looks. They can, like, I don't go for glam pretty much at all. I mostly just go for the greatest hits on Crew and Def Leppard, Skid Row, and etc. But Bootlegs is a really, really great album for me. And Cool from the Wire, Turn the Screw are also very good albums. But like I said, massive hipster, so I'm going to go with this one, which is the one that no one wanted. It's the red-headed stepchild that everyone tries to ignore. But that will be the end of what is an unusual, mildly short episode of Desolation Sounds. Like I said, it's a little bit sparse on news this week, and yeah, it feels sad because the main albums from this year didn't do it for me. The Weezer one was shit, and yeah, there was no happy ending for Dirty Looks. So hopefully next week when I'm back, there will be some some happier news to report, and hopefully we'll have lots of new music and everything will be happy and everything will be cheery. And I can talk about a new Rammstein song. I forgot about that. Shit. And hopefully next week I'll bring you Yakuza of Seismic Consequence as well. Until such time, Facebook, Twitter, social media, I'm always around somewhere. Come say hi. I probably won't respond. But until such time, I will see you soon. Bye bye.